Okay. So this presentation is different in that the objective for this presentation, if you guys recall correctly, is you were supposed to actually look for sources that maybe have a lack of credibility. And so you guys are supposed to kind of present those sources, but analyze them. Let us know why they are not credible. Like, what are they missing? What logical fallacies do some of these sources even use? So this one is actually one of my favorite presentations, simply because it's very interesting to see what you guys come up with, and I love to watch you guys analyze sources. I think we've already established that I'm weird and I'm a bit of a nerd, but I love to watch you guys analyze sources. So, what we will do is we'll do our usual. Okay, we'll start with group one, go to two, go to three. We'll power through, and then after the group presentations are all done, then I will let you guys take a break. Please remember that at the end of your presentation, you have the opportunity to answer some questions. So those of you who are the audience during the presentation, if you think of any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. Even if the group isn't done yet, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we will address a few of the questions. Because we're only looking for like maybe 5 minutes of question and answers, okay? Does anybody have any questions regarding the presentation? Anything at all? I'm getting my timer set up here, you guys. Okay. Well, I'm going to get rid of my face, and I am going to load up group one. Okay, I got to load up their PowerPoint. Okay, I need to share this so you guys can see it. Okay, there it is. All right. So if you're not seeing the PowerPoint on the screen, let me know. Otherwise, okay, we know changes were made. Okay, so as always, I will take my mic, turn my mic off. Let me know when to advance to the next slide, okay? Other than that, I'm going to be timing you. Remember that we are shooting for about a 15-minute presentation, okay? So let me mute myself. I will put it on the full screen, and we will go from there. Hang on a second. It's trying to load up the PowerPoint. Okay. What is going on here? Maybe it's my computer today. I don't know. Okay. We are going to try this again. Okay. Okay, so group one is Nick, Lexi, and Ulysses. So we will let you guys take it away.
Okay, so our topic was, is there any truth behind the conspiracy of a flat Earth by us? So you can go to the first slide. So an introduction to what the flat Earth theory is. The flat Earth theory is a theory that the world is a flat surface rather than a globe. Um, the flat Earth model is an archaic conception of the Earth's shape as a plane or a disk. Most ancient cultures believed they kind of subscribed to a flat Earth cosmography, including Greece until the classical period, the Bronze Age and Iron Age civilizations of the Near East until the Hellenistic period. Um, so a lot of cultures in ancient times kind of subscribed um, to some sort of a disc shaped theory. Um, and then, according to Mark Sargent in the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve, he believed that the Earth is a disc in a dome with revolving lights playing the sun and the moon. And one of the common theories, or the most common theory in the Flat Earth Society, um, is that it's kind of just like a disc, and the okay, here. The leading flat Earth theory holds that the Earth is a disk with the Arctic Circle in the center, and Antarctica is a 150-foot tall wall of ice around the rim. Um, and that NASA tries to prevent people from um, going to Antarctica so they don't fall off the Earth. Next slide.
Okay, so for the rhetorical, I kind of did what supports the flat Earth evidence. And so, first points being that most of the quote unquote facts given by the flat Earth, people who believe in flat Earth, are mainly based off of opinion and they don't have like a ton of like facts supporting their claims. And so I believe that is the appeal to emotions for the fallacies. And so first things first, look the earth looks and feels flat. So based off of when you are walking or driving anywhere, when you look out in front of you, you don't necessarily see the curve. There's no curvature in the horizon. And so unless there's a hill, you're traveling generally on a fairly flat surface. And from a quote from the oh my goodness, the Flat Earth Society like website is the bottoms of the clouds are flat, the movement of the sun, these are all examples of your senses telling you that we do not live in a spherical heliocentric world. And then for the next one, it is the Bedford level experiment, which is the image down on the left. And so in this experiment, it was performed many times on a 6 mile stretch over a body of water that provided like this or that proved that the surface of the water was flat, which would then further prove that there is no curvature in the earth. Otherwise, the water would have shown some sense of conformance to the curves, as many round earthers would teach. And then the kind of little bit of science behind it was since there's a known circumference of the earth having a circumference of 25,000 miles, the water would have to curve downward at approximately 8 inches per mile if the Earth were to be a sphere. Um, and then the other thing that comes into play is that many people would ask, well, why is there so many pictures of a spherical Earth then? And why isn't there any pictures of the Earth being flat if the Earth was flat? And many organizations like the Flat Earth Society say that they don't rely on having pictures of the flat Earth in order to believe, and state that it is very easy for people to modify pictures, and that many pictures that depict a spherical Earth are merely edited to fit what is being told by authorities or authoritative figures. Um, Otherwise, sometimes that they say this picture is simply altered if the image was taken with a bent lens or due to the astronomic conditions outside when the picture is being taken. And then a question that would come up, well, if the Earth is flat, then how would we have a day and night? Because we are taught that the earth rotates and that's how we see the sun half the day and the moon half the day. So basically, with this theory, the sun moves in circles around the North Pole, which, as Nick had said in his slide, is at the center of the Earth. And then it is when it's over your head, it's day, and when it's not, it's night. And the sun basically just acts like a spotlight and shines downward as it moves. And then when it comes to the different like seasons, the sun moves to like the outer part of the earth. I don't know if you guys can see it in the image, but like more towards um the center, well, not the center, but the middle of the three lines there is where it is like for the orbit of December. And so that's how it changes seasons, is that it just moves further back and then more towards the center, towards the North Pole. And that would cause it to become colder at certain times and then warmer at other times so that we would still have the different seasons like summer and winter and fall and spring. Next slide. Okay, for this one, the constraints, like I said before, the other one was proving the argument of the flat earth, and this one is kind of going against the flat earth and how they believe, and just some things that make it more difficult to say that flat earth is real. Um, so the first thing being satellite photos. Um, In many pictures taken by NASA, it shows that the Earth is a sphere, or sphere, and the Flat Earth Society comes back and just says that it's fabrications from NASA and the government to make us think that the Earth is a sphere, but it's not. And they're just doing this as like for greed. Then for the next one, it would be the astronomical finds, and that's kind of going off of like the satellite thing. They say that many conspiracies of the Earth being sphere began during the Cold War. Quote, the USSR and the United States of America were obsessed with beating each other into space to the point where they faked each other's accomplishments in an attempt to keep pace with the other's supposed achievements. However, since the end of the Cold War, the conspiracy is most likely motivated by greed rather than political gains. And then they further to say that the continued space travel that we have today is not what people are saying, and that they're lying about the Earth, um, and that they're not actually going there, or B, they're going into space and saying that the Earth is round, but they're saying that because they depict it as being like a sphere, because that's what they're taught to believe, than actually seeing it as a flat dome. And then when it comes to why are other planets round, in the image on the screen, you can kind of see what the flat Earth theory would be, where all of the other like planets in the solar system are round, and then we have a nice little like square to say that that's Earth. Um, so for the other planets, the answer that I had seen on the Flat Earth Society page again is that other planets are spheres because they aren't Earth. That was just their claim. But because we have a flat Earth, it leaves a major effect, quote unquote major effect on its surroundings, and allows for different classes of planets to live near it, hence them being spheres and the Earth is flat. Much less there is no other reason to believe that the Earth needs to be like other planets and that it can be flat and it doesn't need to be round. But some will go as far as saying that the other planets aren't round either and that they're flat as well.
All right. So I went with Lexi's constraints, and I added two more, but instead of them hindering the ways of flat earthers, I was trying to compete against that, just talking about the other side or what could make us question our beliefs, or not ours, but people who believe the earth is round. Um, One constraint could be that the whole population hasn't been up in space, and we haven't seen it in person that the Earth is round. and that could be a factor because the Flat Earth Society believes around like any photos NASA provides for us and whatnot is just a fabrication, just makes us believe that the Earth is round because of science, no, because of the organizations and the government and whatnot. And since we don't have the ability to go up in space to see it for ourselves, we just have to believe in that. And that could be something that can hinder our opinion because we're forced to believe that it's round. And then also another constraint would be well, this one, I mean, I was thinking of it as a constraint because fake landings, because of the recording of the landing of I believe it was the video where they showed the first landing on the moon, and a lot of people didn't believe that it was real because of it looked because a lot of people who were countering it were saying that it looked fake, didn't look real, and it just kind of piggybacks the past argument saying that we don't really know if it's real, we don't really know if it's something we fully can believe in just because one organization says here here's a video of us showing that we landed in space. We don't know if that's edited, rendered, whatnot. So that can be a factor too. You can go to the next slide. And for logical fallacies, I have found three. It was kind of difficult because I had a hard time putting my mindset into flat earthers. But two logical fallacies that I found with flat earthers is they would use the appeals to ancient wisdom and the appeal to ignorance. Um, the appeal to ancient wisdom would be that it's a fallacy where well, the appeal to ancient wisdom is the fallacy where someone assumes the ancient concepts and knowledge that's superior to modern ones. In reality, just because a concept was created in ancient times does not mean it's correct. Um, I believe Nick was talking about the Golden Age with the Vikings, talking about the flat earthers and what I mean, what they believed back then with Earth, and then also other cultures back then in India, China, whatnot. They believed that the Earth was flat, and some of those drawings on that photo that I have show some illustration of what they thought of what the Earth looked like, um, and when it comes to arguments and whatnot. So I've seen a video of an interview with some people who are in the Flat Earth organization, and they had a convention and whatnot. And a lot of them, when it came to the argument, they would always talk about uh, the past and how so many people believe that it was a flat Earth back then. So they're just using the fallacy of the appeal of ancient wisdom. And for the appeal to ignorance, I believe Lexi was mentioning that. Well, she was mentioning it more as emotion, um, because when it comes to also with their arguments, they would rather personally believe what they think, and they have a hard time convincing themselves that the Earth is round because they just want to believe what they want to believe, and they don't have not the mindset, but the motivation to convince themselves of the other perspective. So that's what I found a lot because, I mean, there's not much scientific evidence that the Earth is flat. And then for a logical fallacy that we have, not we, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, not we, people who believe the Earth is round, the appeal to authority where that could be something that can hinder our oh no, round earthers arguments because round earthers would most of their arguments or the counter arguments they would have towards flat earthers would be um, authoritative figures that convinced them that the Earth was flat. I mean, the Earth was round because of what we learned in school. We know what round earthers learned in school, what round earthers have learned, scientific research, all these findings, which convinces them that the Earth is round, and flat earthers don't really want to go with the authority and believe what they say. All right, next slide.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Um, so the current status, or the current number of people who believe the flat Earth, uh, that the Earth is flat, has increased by 200 per year since 2009. I couldn't find any like concrete number of how many believe in it, but I found that yeah, it's increased by about 200 since 2009. Several celebrities have come out proclaiming that they believe in the flat Earth theory. Some well-known ones are rapper B.O.B., NBA player Kyrie Irving, and former NBA player Shaquille O'Neal. They've all proclaimed in some way or another that they believe that the Earth is flat. The flat Earth community has even got their own Spanish football team. The Spanish football team, formerly known as Mostales Balompi, has been officially renamed to the Flat Earth Football Club by its president Javi Pulvis. Um, so it's something that's growing throughout society, and mainly in America and European countries. Um, but it's something that's growing in number, and um, yeah, a lot more people are starting to believe in the theory. Go to the next slide. And here are our sources.
All right, great job. Um, okay, I hope you're not insulted, but there were some of those facts I laughed at. So, but you guys came up with some good things.
Oh,
Now,
it's okay.
now
I
I
definitely laughed at some of them too.
let's pull up the chat box here because I did hear a couple of questions ping in. So, one of the questions is, do you think there's any way possible the earth is flat? So considering what you guys researched, have your views changed or have you always believed that the earth is flat? Is it possible?
I think personally that the Earth is round. Is there a possibility that it could be flat? I mean, until personally I go to space, I can never know for sure. But I'm not someone who um, distrusts our government and thinks that they would fake the photos of space and fake the International Space Station and all that. Um, so personally, I believe that the Earth is round. Um, that's just me, though.
I personally believe that the Earth is round as well. This isn't my first time having a look at the flat Earth theory. I had to do it for a different one of my classes in the past, a conspiracy theories class, and Nick actually touched on it on his introduction slide. We had to watch the documentary Behind the Curve, which it has some good facts, and like the one that I threw in there with like the ocean having to like curve to a certain amount and would have to like decrease by or curve at like 8 inches per mile. Like that gives you just some like things to think about and be like, well, could it be flat? But I personally believe that the earth is round as well, but there are some things that kind of make you think about it. Well, is it round? So, yes, I believe in a round earth because of what we've been taught. And like Nick said, I don't think that the government would push something to that extent to say that the earth is sphere when it's not. And also, like Nick said, I've never been to space, and until I can potentially go to space, I won't know if it's round or not. And I just kind of have to believe that it is round because of the scientific evidence supporting that, where there isn't really any evidence supporting a flat Earth, and it's more opinion and claims.
Well, I just believe the Earth is round. I don't really see anything else. That's just what I've been taught, and I just go with that. I don't really see the point of me going out of my way and following theories and other conspiracies that, uh, I mean, yeah, I just find it hard to believe because, like in the past with ancient society and civilizations, they believed the Earth was flat because that's the only thing you can rely on, and they didn't really have the technology that we have today. And I mean, with now with what we have, with I guess people going out in space, what the first what's it? Oh my gosh, I don't. Never mind. Sorry. Basically, I'm just saying that we've advanced so much to a point where I find it hard to believe that the Earth would be flat if the
I,
government and like NASA has said the Earth is round.
I just want to add one thing to both their points is just the fact that I don't know what we'd have to gain, or NASA would have to gain from convincing us that the Earth is round. I mean, I don't see any
Yeah, I don't see.
advantages to it being round compared to flat.
Yeah, I agree with them both with that too.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. It's let's see, the second question that came through was, do you think the celebrities have fallen victim to various fallacies?
I mean, I would definitely say yes to that because of the fact that there are people who do definitely try to persuade you to believe that the Earth is flat. Like I said before too, with the documentary on Netflix of Behind the Curve, like they have brought in like different scientists, they brought in different like flat earthers and like all different things to try supporting their claims. So I definitely feel like they could be overtaken with that because at a sense that would be an authoritative figure, and so they might fall under to like the category of oh my goodness, I can't believe think of what it's called off the top of my head, the appeal to authority, but then they might also be doing the appeal to ancient wisdom. Well, if that's what our ancestors believed, like why shouldn't I believe that as well? But they everyone has their own opinion on this, and so it would be hard to say yes or no to did they fall victim to it.
I just think that the flat Earth community has grown a lot in recent years, so I don't think it's surprising that there's been celebrities that have kind of jumped on board or kind of uh, joined that belief system that the Earth is flat. Um, so yeah, I do think that there's some sort of like bandwagon type of thing going on that it's becoming more and more popular, so more and more celebrities are believing it, which causes more and more people to believe in it because people appeal to authority.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hop off what Nick said because yeah, I kind of just was gonna say that. So
And Nick, I'm so glad you used the term bandwagon. I was hoping one of you would say something like that. Because that's another one of our logical fallacies, right? That's a technique, an argumentative technique is the whole bandwagon theory. So good job. Yay. So glad you said that. So I just had a question. As you guys were doing some research, I'm looking at your sources here. Um, and maybe you said it, and I apologize if you did and I missed it because I do take notes while you guys are presenting. Uh, in your research, did you find do the flat earthers actually have scientists that are putting out what they consider facts and discoveries?
I
Okay.
believe there was a. Let me see if I can find it quick. Um, there was a guy who approached a former NASA, or apparently a former NASA employee in like a Starbucks or whatever, and was questioning him or whatnot. So I think there might be like that. but that's all I found.
Um, One of the sources on there, the one that's really, really long, the Robotham Samuel Burley, that's actually a book that he wrote with all different sorts of like experiments that they did to prove that the Earth is flat. And that's where like the picture from my rhetorical argument came from, stating like it would have to go at a certain curvature, like 8 inches down. Yeah, that argument. That is actually like it's an entire book that's all things proving that the Earth would be flat. So there was some science behind it, but if I don't know if you see that, it was published in 1873. So there's like no new science behind it. Going back again to the documentary Behind the Curve, they tried to like redo that like scientists like work and did like an experiment where they tried shining a light over like 6 miles through a tube to see if it would go through the other tube, and it didn't end up working. Um, so that kind of just disproved what they were trying to prove. But they are trying to do some science, but as I've stated before, it's more based on opinion than fact.
Okay.
And for me, I personally was didn't like look for scientific background with flat earthers because I was looking for the uncredible sources with just people like in conventions with their arguments and making claims. So I personally didn't look to see if there's any scientists backing up their like idea of a flat Earth because I was just going for the uncredible sources.
I think the documentary also said that Lexi was talking about um, that there's that because they kind of covered it from both sides, the flat Earth's view and the round Earth's view, and some of like the scientists they were talking to is that, or and even the flat earthers would say that no right-minded scientist would come out and claim that the Earth is flat because it would totally debunk their whole field.
Okay. Yeah, and I know you guys, you know, that was part of the objective for this presentation was for you guys to find the sources that maybe were not so credible. I was just generally curious what you had seen when you were doing your research. So good job, you guys. Very informative. Every time I think of the Round Earth Society, or excuse me, the Flat Earth Society, I think of it's a meme, a comment from Facebook where it says something about Flat Earth Society has members all around the world, and somebody commented underneath and said, "Say that again." Slowly. So that always makes me laugh when I think of the Flat Earth Society. So, okay, so good job. All right, so group one, you are officially done with all of your presentations. You can take a deep breath. So we are going to move on to group two, who is Bailey, Ella, Beatriz, and Alexis. And I am just getting stuff set up here. Let me get your presentation loaded up. Let's see what happens here. I did get an email. It looks like there may be connections, errors on the school side here. Okay, so while that's loading up, question came across, do you want us to submit our notes again? Yes. So when you guys have a chance to submit all of your materials for the third presentation, please submit your notes, submit your thoughts on kind of how you think the presentation went and just everything that was happening in the background, okay? All right, so now let's see if this will go to the slideshow. Let's see here. Okay, take to the chat box. Am I breaking up for you guys? Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to change a setting here. See, it doesn't want to connect. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay right this instant? Okay. All right. So if I do continue to break up, just kind of drop me a message in the chat box. We'll see what's going on here. This is kind of a weird day for connections, and I'm not sure why. All right. So let's give group number 2 the floor here. I'll try to get this open up. And I am going to mute myself and I will turn the time over to group 2. Remember, audience, if you think of any questions, please put them in the chat box, okay? All right, over to you guys.
Should college tuition be free by us? You can go to the next slide. What is college tuition? So college tuition is the price of classes and courses offered at universities and colleges. Typically, tuition does not cover room and board or books and materials. So students will more often than not have to take out loans to be able to pay for these things and other necessities like food and water, gas if they have a car, rent if they live off campus, and other fees that they may have. Next slide.
Okay, so why should college tuition be free? The price of college tuition has been skyrocketing these past few years, and it places higher education beyond the reach of many American students. So as students, we will most likely all graduate. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So as students, we will most likely graduate with debt, and even with an extensive level of education under our belt, it could lead us living the rest of our lives paying off debts, and it can make that really hard for people. Um, it can make it hard to even obtain a middle class lifestyle depending on what career you have. You can go to the next slide. So the effect college cost has on our life. So the price of tuition is extremely high, and college debt is the largest debt in the United States. It comes in at $1.7 trillion. Making tuition free would allow people to have access to the education they desire without putting themselves into debt. It would decrease the debt, increase our education rates in our country, and increase a ton of jobs. There's a great exigence for free tuition because free college tuition programs have proved that it is effective. Free college tuition programs have proved that they are beneficial and needed in various ways. You can go to the next slide.
Logical fallacies. This is from the article Raising College Tuition is a Tax Increase by Rick Scott, and it was posted in 2013. He used many statistics in paragraph 4. Firstly, he states that Florida was ranked 40th for tuition fees in the US. The average cost of tuition had risen more than 125% over the past 10 years. So he draws the conclusion that it's impossible for any family to pay for those fees. And by saying that, he's trying to convince the reader by using logical reasoning. And basically, he's saying that no one would ever pay that much for school if it had increased that much. But the fallacy in that is that he misused the statistics. So the tuition fees had risen more than 125% in Florida during the past 10 years, but there are other states. So their tuition costs must have gone up as well, and that's why Florida was ranked the 40th for tuition fees. You can go to the next slide. Logical fallacies continued. In the article, it said that Florida has proven that a high-quality university experience can be offered at a low cost. So there is no reason for the rising of tuition fees, but that's not true. With the increase of the living standard, people get more wages, so the prices will also rise. And universities may have to raise tuition fees in order to pay the professors and other workers at the university or college, and they're getting paid more. And then the college or university has to buy facilities, which is more expensive because the prices have risen. So for colleges and universities to have the same quality of education as they used to, they have to have more money to do that. So they will raise tuition fees. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, so I know we were supposed to like use non-trustworthy sources, things that we could point out, but personally for me, I wanted a visual aid where people could actually see opinions since this topic is sort of interesting. Um, so basically what this graph is showing is they did two different polls based on free college for 2-year public colleges and 4-year public colleges. And overall, 60% or more of just the general public, regardless of what side of politics you support, decided that free college would be beneficial, and they would support it. And that's, like I said, for both 2 and 4-year colleges. But then if you look at the individual ones, overall, 2-year public colleges being free is more supported in every category than 4-year colleges. And overall as well, Democrats are more supportive of making college free rather than Republicans. Next slide.
So the topic will continue to be unsolved issue because student loan debt is crippling for college graduates. 44 million Americans owe more than 1.5 trillion in student debt. The younger generation won't know how to handle finance. College loans are often a first major finance to deal with. Paying them off in a timely manner proves you know how to budget. College won't seem that important. It would lead to students cutting more classes or not trying because they are not getting their money's worth because they aren't paying. More people will go to college. More money would have to be given to schools or need a wait list. Taxes might go up and funding will change to pay fees. More people will be overqualified in some degrees. The rich would get the help they don't need, and then it's often it offers no way to control what people study. The government shouldn't be funding people's degrees in majors that aren't likely to lead to a good job. You can go to the next slide. And that's our sources.
So I believe Bailey said that she missed a slide in the comments, like it wasn't showing up for her. Could you possibly go back to slide 4 and I think that's the one that she's talking about. Maybe we can see if it shows up. Is this the one that you were talking about, Bailey?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I saw this slide, but
Yeah,
okay.
I must have not have read it right or skipped it accidentally, so sorry. But I just want to touch on the cons of making tuition free. So I read a lot of information about blog posts of people's opinions, and so the lists I gathered was that people believe that college education should solely be an investment, that college students should pay for their studies and not the taxpayer. I also heard the opinion that kids from rich families do not need the free education and that their family should be paying it for them. Also, many students may not actually be suited for college. Educational inflation, and students may not focus on one major. They may just kind of bounce around and not take anything seriously, and that could cause a lot of wasteful money. Um, so yeah, that's all the information I got on the cons. Thanks for going back to that.
No problem. Okay. Um, there were some very good questions that popped up in here. Hang on a second. Let me scroll back up. Da, 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 da. Okay, so one of the first questions that popped up was, should students who are failing receive free college? And you guys sort of touched on that with your points, but wonder if you like to elaborate.
Personally, I don't think that if someone is failing, they should have everything covered. Um, I think we have a pretty good system now with FAFSA and how if you fail a class, I'm pretty sure they don't cover it. I don't know if I'm 100% correct, but I think the system we have currently now with that is just fine.
You are
I
correct.
agree with Bailey.
Yeah, and you are correct with the FAFSA. If you have financial aid and you fail a class, you end up having to pay for that class. You have to come up with the money. So you are correct.
Yeah, I think regardless of whether or not FAFSA were to stick and still be the norm for all the kids that are attending college in the future, there should, free or not, there should be sort of like rules you have to adhere to. So I know Bailey mentioned in her cons section the fact that kids may just jump around to different topics. I think that you should be held responsible to stick to one for free, or maybe two if you decide halfway through to switch. But you shouldn't be allowed to just leapfrog to different career paths and have it all be free. You gotta at some point make up your mind, knowing that that's not your money being spent on the classes.
Okay, it sounds like you may have actually answered one of the other questions that was in there. You touched on it because one of the questions was, what are the recommendation? Whoop, you guys are popping them in, so I have to scroll back up. What are the recommendation for those that continue to change their major, preventing people from taking advantage? And you kind of talked about that a little bit, Alexis, I think. I don't know if you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little different. I feel like people should still be allowed to change their major if they're not happy with what they're going for. Um, yeah, I don't know if there should be like a way where they have to get a certain certificate before they move on. Um, but I still feel like people should be allowed to change their major. Maybe just not stay in school for like 8 years to just get a 4 year degree. Maybe there should be like a year point cap on it.
Yeah, I agree with what Bailey said. I can't sit here and say that you should pick one and stick with it because first of all, you don't want someone to be unhappy, and second of all, that would be very hypocritical of me considering I was almost done with my first degree and I decided to move on to something different. But I do think that there needs to be a sort of a limit if we wanted to be able to make free college available to everyone and not just certain students.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and your classmates have come up with some really good questions here. So let's try to get maybe a couple more in here. Okay. Um, I'm trying to see ones that maybe you've addressed or not. Okay. So, do you personally think education value would drop if less money was being brought into universities and for teachers? So, if free college was a thing, do you think that the value of the education would drop?
When it comes to the amount of money that's being brought into the university, I don't think that would change very much because it would just switch from students paying out of pocket to taxpayers paying the education. So I think the quality of education would stay the same, but um, maybe how much people valued their degree and, like the social aspect of, oh, he has a degree might change a little bit, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny that you say that because one of the next question that had popped up kind of ties into that a little bit. That says, do you think that more students go to university due to societal pressure rather than the actual want? So they actually go to college because society looks at, the value of that degree. Do you think that's the case?
I personally do think that's the case. I think that um, almost every degree that will pay you decent to live decent does require a degree. And plus, just within like friend groups, I feel like if you're the one kid that doesn't go to college, people sort of view you different. So I do think there is a lot of societal pressure to attend universities and leave with a degree in something.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And even if you dig deeper into that, what college you go to, and if you choose to go to community college, is still kind of like stigmatized. Because my friends all go to 4 years, and even though I'm going to transfer to a 4 year, I still feel a bit different and that I'm getting a different experience than my friends.
I completely agree with that. Every time, because I'm not from Green Bay, so when I meet new people up here and they ask if I'm going to school, 9 times out of 10 they'll be like, and then I say yes, 9 times out of 10 they'll say, "Oh, UWGB," and I gotta be like, "No, the technical college."
I do with the same thing. That's funny.
Well, okay, so let's address this last question and then we'll move on to the next group. But a question popped up. So, we're talking about tech school programs, we're talking about universities, we're talking about societal pressure. Do you think, so let's say free tuition, okay? So you can get your bachelor's degree free tuition. Do you think that master's degrees should also be free? Because that's just that additional schooling beyond your initial college degree.
Yeah, if we're talking about having taxpayers already pay for the 4 year degree, then yeah, it would make sense if someone wants to continue their education and get their master's. Yeah,
I think it should be almost at some point you should have to chip in because if it were to be free for everyone, if eventually you're sitting here wondering where's the money going to come from. I mean, not like we already don't do that, but these degrees only get more expensive as you get further into schooling. So at some point, I feel like people might have to chip in, especially if it's just an addition, not a requirement for where you're going to work.
Okay, very interesting. Good job, you guys. This definitely is a current controversial topic. If you guys pay attention to politics and news, it is something that has been discussed at great length. I believe the last word from our current president was that it is not something that is going to happen in the foreseeable future. So, good job. Good discussion. And I bet you if we were in the classroom, I bet you your classmates could come up with quite a few more questions. So, excellent job. Applause for you. I got to reset my timer. So let's go on to group 3. We'll let group 3 have their presentation and then we will take a nice break. Okay. So group 3 is Justin, Angela, Jasmine, and Alexa. So let's get the screen shared. Okay, that time it went fast, so good. Maybe all of our glitches are done. All right, so let's start our slideshow. Okay, turn the time over to group 3.
So our presentation is on the credibility of social media, the benefits, and the downfalls. Next slide, please. So here's just an introduction and like some relevancy to us personally. Due to social media, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories floating around that especially with like election year. And those conspiracy theories contain a lot of false information, which also imposes a problem. And then recently there was a big scandal with stock market manipulation from retail investors. That's becoming an arising problem with social media. And then the frequency of advertisements is kind of tampering the social media experience and kind of making it more, I don't necessarily know the word, harder to deal with. But some benefits are social media is a great networking resource. Um, a lot of people have learned that are starting smaller, new companies, smaller companies, the rise of entrepreneurship. And then a lot of people use social media as a generation of income from Facebook, Instagram, developing Facebook pages for companies. There's a million different ways. And then it's also a free source of promotion, and it connects you to your loved ones and old friends. I'm going to go over all that stuff throughout the slides. This is just a little introduction. And the exigence is on social media, everybody tends to think they're an expert. They have what I like to call keyboard courage, where they just say whatever they want because they don't have a face-to-face interaction with the person they're insulting or arguing with. And a lot of the comments are unfiltered. There's like no laws on the internet. So it's kind of wild. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits of social media. Um, Wikipedia tends to think that social media promotes a feeling of inclusion, which it kind of does. You do have better communication with your family and your friends, which is nice. And it has evolutionized romantic relationships where you can meet people online, develop relationships online, get catfished, all that stuff. And then I think a bold statement was um, adolescents are less likely isolated and more likely to linger in public spaces. That's a direct quotation from the Wikipedia website I found. And again, the marketing benefits. Decreased work time. 84% found 6 hours of work time a day was sufficient. Actually, I think it was a week was sufficient for generating or for marketing for your company. And then 92% of companies claim that social media is actually vital in 2014 from a survey done by medium.com as well. And then you can improve tons of communication and technical skills through YouTube, videos on Facebook. And they also want to say that you can develop healthy habits through social media and the internet, as in like eating habits and other habits as well. Next slide, please. And then some of the negatives. There's a theory called the social comparison theory. It's a theory that people establish their own personal value by comparing themselves to others. That was actually a theory done by Psychology Today. That's a huge problem, especially with like our youth. They are comparing themselves strictly to people on the internet, and it's becoming a huge problem. And it leads to cyberbullying, which I think this number has probably gone up. 15.5% of students have been electronically bullied, whether it be on email, chat rooms, instant messengers, websites, or even just texting. It's becoming a big problem through social media. And then social media is actually imposing addiction from teens. They spend 9 hours a day, which is over a quarter of your day, a third of your day, just on social media, which is a pretty big issue. And then a lot of studies are showing that social media is linked to depression from the frequent use. 27% of you have an increased chance of 27% of developing depression. Um, it can also lead to problems like sleep deprivation, health problems, suicide, all that bad stuff. Next slide, please.
So for the rhetorical situation, I went with just like I want to say positive things that are going on with it that are the most common. So everyone has an opinion and everyone has a right to their opinion, which they do, but it becomes kind of crazy sometimes if you make a single post.
they say there was a study done that there was an effect that social media personally has an effect on your mood. So if you see negative things on the internet, you're likely to have a negative mood. Emotions expressed on Facebook can affect your mood. It can provide and provoke instances of elation and or depression. Exposure to Facebook is being called the emotionally contagious and can even affect your mental health in the future. Some of the downsides of the social media's addiction to social media is an epidemic among nations and teens, with this seems to be a case everywhere, not even in just in the United States. It eliminates the actively interacting with people, especially sharing messages, posts, and comments with close friends and reminiscing about past interactions, and it is linked to improvements in well-being. But it can also create a support system. So if someone is on a diet or they're looking, hey, I'm looking on a new diet, I'm looking at this new shake, you're going to get a lot of support. So it helps kind of solidify that commitment that you're making to like a diet or quitting drugs or alcohol or any other types of commitments that you make. You get that support system that you may not get in real life. I'm just like, I don't know, your birthday comes up. If I didn't have social media, only my close relatives would probably wish me a happy birthday, where everybody, even people that you haven't seen since high school, are wishing you a happy birthday. It can also increase your relationships. With the relationships, it helps long distance relationships while helping you break down any geographical barriers that may exist. It also helps. There's a lot of suicide interventions that are occurring on social media, so that helps. If someone looks like they're depressed, a lot more people are willing to jump in. If your thoughts are kind of going in a negative direction. There's also flags and triggers through a lot of the social media sites where now it's actually triggering support system through the company itself to reach out to you if certain words and verbiage is used in a post. Local meetups are looking for those with same or similar interests. So if you're a biker and you like to go mountain biking, there's a lot of groups that you can meet up. So it's easy to find groups that are gonna help support you. There was a quote done by Mesfin Becula, which states that the routine of social media may compensate for diminishing face-to-face social interactions in people's busy lives. Social media may provide individuals with a platform that overcomes barriers of distance and time, allowing them to connect and reconnect with others, and therefore expand and strengthen their in-person networks and interactions. You can go to the next slide. The next slide is the constraints. So in essence, the negative effects of social media. The decrease of personal interaction to it is similar to the fact that people are spending more and more time messaging and posting on their news feeds about their lives and going out and interacting with people face to face. This affects the type of personal connections that we make as one. So I grew up where I didn't have a cell phone until I was probably like 17 or 18. And if I did have it, I called. I didn't text. Nowadays, everyone texts. So that eliminates you don't know if people are going to be emotional or how to take a message. So that's where you get into the comment battles, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. There's the frauds, like Nick had stated, the catfish. People who are not themselves and create fake profiles to get to know someone, and this will affect people's trust and or mistrust. There's a lot of spam that goes on these people that will send you a friend request requesting, and they will eventually hack your account. There's a lot of mental issues that correspond with this, like was discussed earlier. A lot of depression, suicide rates have increased because of cyberbullying, and COVID has not helped that situation whatsoever. Fake news was known in the last political debate. You don't know what to believe. On one news station states one thing, and the other states another, and then there are accounts that just post random stuff just to get people's like blood boiling and get them riled up. So I never believe anything I see online. And comment battles. You may think it's a harmless post or a comment that someone is just shaken and goes on the defense and turns into a comment battle, and your phone starts blowing up. An example, I posted on a friend's site that I've known since high school that I was glad that he got the COVID vaccine, but I wanted to know how he get it, as he is a cellular salesman and my husband is in heart failure. So I just needed to know where he went. And I got blown up on my negative comment, even though it wasn't negative, just me asking a question. People just get so defensive. So you really can't be who you are on social media sometimes, even though you try to be. Next slide.
So the benefits of logical fallacies, I have debates, which is related to politicians and even the president. They can use any one of the fallacies to mislead people and to trick them into believing something that they wouldn't otherwise. Advertising also uses a lot of different fallacies, things like bandwagon, hasty generalization, things like that to get people to buy their products, products that they probably don't even need, but now they think that they need. Knowledge of the fallacies. So having knowledge of them, you are able to avoid them in your own arguments, which using them in your own arguments only discredits yourself and makes your argument weak, but not necessarily invalid. And a kind of going along with knowledge of fallacies is you are able to evaluate and critique other arguments so you can make better judgments on the research or the arguments that you are inquiring about by being able to point out, maybe this is just a bandwagon situation or appeals to tradition fallacy. Next slide. So a couple downfalls related to fallacies. Like I kind of said before, that they weaken the argument. It discredits the author yourself. It weakens it, but like I said, does not make it invalid. So the next thing is harms decision making. So I have a couple examples here that ways that it harms your decision making. So I have hasty generalization, which you make decisions from not knowing all of the facts ad hominem. So the listener attacks the other person and ignores what they are saying. And the last one I have down for an example is appeal to tradition, which states like blindly assuming that it's the right decision just because this is the way that it's been done for years and years and years, even though you might honestly know that it's not the right decision. And that kind of ties into bandwagon, just because everybody's doing it, so I should too. And lastly, misleads people, which I kind of talked about previously as well, especially with politicians when they're debating against each other, and also in the presidential debates. A lot of the times they're just promising all of these things to happen, and it's just misleading, and then they get into office and it doesn't happen. Next slide.
Okay, I had how to identify logical fallacies on social media. One of the fallacies I found was false dilemma, which is demanding that a person choose between logical and illogical choices, and a person makes you choose either their side or no side at all. Ad hominem fallacy is seen when you attack the person who made the argument rather than attacking the actual argument itself. Red herring fallacy, changing the topic being presented to an irrelevant topic, steering away from the original topic, and people do this to allow for distraction and make other arguments look invalid. And the straw man fallacy, taking a person's argument out of context in order to make it easier to defeat the other person's argument. Next slide. And then there's our citations.
All right, good job. I was just going to go back. Can you guys all see this picture here? Let me pull it up. And of course, it wants to think about it. I'm hoping you can read it on your screens good. It says, it's a quote by President Bush, and says, every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. So, great image. I'm glad you chose that when you were talking about logical fallacies. I understand the point he was trying to make, but yeah, there's definitely a logical fallacy in there. So, excellent job. I know there were some questions that pinged through here, so hang on. Okay, so the first question that came through was, do you think that there is a double standard for social media users? I'm not sure if they're referring to like for the ages of people or male versus female. Um, I don't know if we.
Okay, I was going to ask that question. I meant it kind of like in a way of, do you think like that you should be able to like post anything and not receive like any backlash, or if you like, or if someone else posts something, are you allowed to go after them and then expect it like not to happen to yourself type deal?
Gotcha. Okay, so group three, do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I think that people post sometimes in order to just start an argument, honestly. I've got some friends on social media that like to argue, so I know they do it purposely just for the satisfaction of arguing.
I personally think that it should be like the social norms set in like public settings, like at the store. If two people are arguing, you're not gonna just come in and start giving your opinion all of a sudden. But if you see somebody getting, wrongfully lashed at, maybe you would step in and say, hey, why don't you back off a little bit? But there's definitely like people that go on social media strictly to just provoke arguments, and it's pretty ridiculous. But there's really nothing that you can do about it since there is people do get fines for harassment and stuff like that, but I feel like that's all you can really do to like um navigate through those standards.
I think there should be a limit. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. That's fine. I have absolutely no problem with that. But when you start making it personal, as someone started attacking my 70-year-old grandmother, calling her an old bag to go back to her couch, that I think is a little too far. There should be limits and lines that should be followed. Like Justin said, if you're not going to do it in public and to that person that face to face, you probably should say it. But everyone has this behind the keyboard courage where they just think they can just say whatever the heck they want and they don't care what the repercussions or how the other person may feel. It's just knowing your surroundings.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me, all of a sudden I tried to talk and I couldn't. So this is an excellent question. The question is, at what age would you allow or advise your hypothetical future kids to download social media?
My kids are 7 and 5, and they are not going to be allowed to have social media until they're like 11 or 12. Because I don't want them to be attached to the computer or their devices. Like my son is already on YouTube, but he watches sports articles and learns about like humpback whales and spiders. So he likes to learn stuff, but you're not going to really learn anything on social media. I don't want him to know how to interact with people face to face and not through a computer. But that's just me.
I have a 18-month-old daughter as well, and I'm on the same boat as Jasmine. I would like to wait as long as possible, and I think around 12 or 13 is when she'll be able to get social media. But I don't want her to lack the knowledge of like using a tablet and a laptop. So I kind of want to incorporate that with her in some way, but I don't think that social media will be the way until she's older.
I have a 12-year-old son who I do let go on social media. Only certain things I allow him on, but it's something that I monitor what he posts and shares and everything like that.
And I think that's perfectly fine as long as you monitor what they're doing, because you never know the crazy stuff that can go on social media, like the people that could be contacting them or anything like that. So I definitely am not opposed to allowing your kid to use social media.
Okay, you guys made some good points.
I absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just saying that I agree and that I think there's definitely like boundaries and monitoring that needs to happen, but also kind of somebody said that they have like a very young daughter and that, they really try to keep them off the tablet and things like that. I absolutely agree with that. And I'm actually not on social media. Like I don't have Facebook, Instagram, all of that. So I think my views are different in that way, that I'd almost just hope that they don't want to be on it because I'm not on it. But it's also the bandwagon, kind of fallacy. Well, everybody else is doing it, so I should be able to. So, like I said, with a lot of monitoring and, boundaries and things like that, I definitely think that a kid can be on social media.
Okay, excellent. I think it was Justin, I think you said it, that it's like important for your children to be able to use these electronic devices because they are everywhere. Um, but you guys all I think agreed and made the good point that if you are going to let your children use social media, but that you have the power to kind of monitor what they are using. So I wholeheartedly agree. Okay, so let's address one more question and then we will go on break here. Um, the question is, have any of you personally noticed the issues that come with consuming too much social media? And if so, how do you cope or what did you change?
I personally have like a social media addiction. I don't know why I feel the need to scroll on Facebook or Snapchat or any of that stuff all the time, but I do. But there are times when it does become overwhelming and I just delete the app and completely forget about it for a couple weeks. And that's how I personally deal with it. But like with all the election stuff going on and the COVID stuff going on, I was like so intrigued by just reading everybody's opinions, and I was like getting all my information from there and basing my opinion off of that. And it just became too much, so I just deleted everything, and um, it actually helped a lot. Social media can 110% mess with your mental health and your focus and all that. I do believe that you can consume way too much social media.
Me personally, like I have my social media accounts mostly on my phone and some of them on my computer. And when I feel like it's becoming a problem, I just, like he said, just delete it. And because I use my computer a lot less than I use my phone, so if it's not on my phone, I'm less likely to go on it for a while. And it is kind of nice to just take breaks from things like that to get back in touch with the real world.
See, I personally am not on Facebook or Instagram a whole lot just because I hate watching the news. I just, I just, I'll watch the Weather Channel and that is it. I don't like watching anything else. I guess I don't want to know the bad things. I want to pretend like the bad things are not happening. So I do a lot of disconnect, but the only time I'm on social media is just to promote my business. Which that can sometimes become like a tunnel or like marketplace. That's my tunnel. I just get drawn in and I could stay on marketplace for like hours, but that's the only type of addiction I have with it.
Okay, those are actually excellent suggestions. Thank you for sharing those. All right, you guys, round of applause for everyone. Deep breaths because you now are done with group presentations. So you can kind of take that nice sigh there. Let's take about a 12-minute break because there are a couple of things that I want to make sure that we cover before we are done with class today. Okay, so I will put up a timer and see you guys in 12 minutes. Okay, does that sound good to everybody? All right, go breathe, go be human. See you in 12 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to take us into Blackboard here really quickly, but not on the timer screen. We don't need the timer. Here we go. Okay, so learning plans. I'm going to take you down into Learning Plan 4. I'm going to take us into the Evaluate Logical Arguments. And then I'm going to scroll down to the folder that actually has your group presentation information, okay? So just a reminder, oops, except for that's the wrong date. We didn't present on the 5th, so don't worry about that. You presented today. That's what you're supposed to. So through here, I want you guys to submit any outline, notes, whatever you use to help you present your part of the material for the presentation. And as always, let me know how the presentation went for you. How was it like working with this group? Anything like that, okay? And if you may be one of the individuals that didn't submit any notes or outlines for presentation 2, just keep scrolling down and you'll see that presentation 2 is right here. So go ahead and get those submitted. Even if you have already submitted your comments on your experience, you'll still be able to submit your notes. It gives you more than one submission opportunity. So please go ahead and get those in, and then that way I can finish anything left for presentation 2, and I will take care of presentation 3. So any questions on the presentations? Okay. So guess what? Oh, I just heard a ping on the chat box, I think here. Okay. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the syllabus or the calendar or whatnot, but next week, so next Friday, which is, I'm looking over at my calendar just if you guys are wondering, next Friday would be the 19th. Well, NWTC has spring break that week. So we will not be meeting next week in class, all right? You guys can take a breather from class. However, I'm going to make you a little bit sad because there is some work that needs to be done before we meet again on the 26th. So depending on how you schedule and shift everything, you'll still have time to play and relax. Of course, if you're like me and you have kids, who remembers what playing and relaxing is like? So what I want to go through is the important information you need to help you accomplish what needs to be done for the 26th, okay? So let's go back into the learning plans. And if you guys want to click along, please feel free to do so, okay? Believe it or not, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And sorry, I just have to make sure that I'm taking to the right one. Okay. I'm going to take us to Learning Plan 7. We're looking ahead. The reason that we're looking ahead is because we really need to look at the details of your persuasive research essay. We need to know the details because everything from here on out that we're working on is going to help you build this research essay. So let's look through this, okay? So in Learning Plan 7, that's where there's the folder for the persuasive research essay. Most of you, all of you have a topic. I know a couple of you switched, which is cool. That's fine. I get that that's what happens when we start looking at sources because this is a bigger paper. Okay, so let's go through this information together. All right. Okay, so this research essay is the capstone project of English Comp 2. Okay, this is the culmination of all of your work in this semester. In this paper, you will show your mastery of persuasion in the writing process. Your writing will display an understanding of and ability to use audience appeals, logic, intensive research, and critical thinking to form an argument intended for a skeptical academic audience. Your paper must be both formatted and documented according to MLA or APA standards. And if you guys remember, it is up to you. You guys get to choose whether you want to use MLA or APA. I usually encourage you to check with your program that you are in. Usually the advisors and stuff for that program will say whether they want you to use a specific format. Otherwise, they'll just say it really doesn't matter, just use MLA. Okay, so it's up to you. I am not assigning a format. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward here just a little bit. Your goal is to prove that the majority of quality research, as well as the process of critical logical thinking, support your essay's assertions. Okay, so majority of your essay must be original writing. That means we want your thoughts, we want your opinions, we want your examinations, your critical thinking, and you're going to use the quotes and paraphrases and summaries and statistics and whatever else. You're using that to really support what your point is, okay, what your opinion is. Your goal is to be free of errors in logic, okay? So really, really pay attention. You know, we've been talking about all these fallacies and stuff like that. Really make sure that you don't fall prey to using some of those logical fallacies, okay? It needs to follow a recognized pattern of logical development, okay? We're looking for some logical development. You can always go back to your textbook and look up, you know, logical development, or look up induction and deduction to refresh your memory, how those play out. In addition, the tone and style of this essay should mimic that of scholarly discourse, which would exclude colloquial expressions and slang. Okay. Now, since we are writing an academic paper, take to the chat box and tell me, if I'm writing an academic paper, am I supposed to write in first person, second person, or third person? Okay. We are writing in third person. Third person. If you are unfamiliar with which pronouns to use for third person, I would encourage you to Google it, okay? You're going to stick to third person. Depending on the topic you have that you're trying to argue in your essay, if it has to do something like, let's say, has to do with vaccines, and you happen to be a nurse or a nursing student, or possibly have a personal experience that could really be a strong source for your argument, you may use a secondary writing strategy by using a narrative. Okay, you can use a narrative to explain the experience, but make sure that it's just that short experience. And within that experience, you can use first person. But when you are done using that experience to make a point, you need to immediately shift back to third person. Does that make sense? Okay, I was hoping if there was silence, that just meant that you did understand. But a narrative is a definite writing tool that you can use if it is applicable to your topic, okay? So keeping that in mind, you guys all have your topics. make sure that as you are doing research, as you're looking, that your topic is going to help you span out to 12 to 15 pages. Okay, 12 to 15 pages of double-spaced writing. Do you guys remember what size font you're supposed to use? Tell me in the chat box. Haha, nice. A whole bunch of you came in at the same time. 12-point font, okay? Now, when I say 12 pages, it has to be at least a 12-page paper. That 12 pages does not include your sources paper. Page. So at the end of your paper, if you are writing an MLA, you will have a works cited page. If you are writing an APA, it will be a references page. And yes, this is double spaced. It's using, the 1-inch margins that Word does for you automatically. So please make sure you get that full 12 pages. Okay, so don't get like 12 pages, but the 12th page of writing is just like one paragraph on the top. That's not 12 pages of writing. Okay, so I want you to note what it says there. Not meeting the required page length will automatically reduce the final essay grade by 10%. I mean, how much of a bummer would that be if you were like 2 paragraphs away from meeting those 12 pages and then have to get docked by that, 10%. So really, really shoot for that, okay? Obviously, the end result of this paper needs to be strong. It needs to have topic sentences. We're going to continue to work on thesis statements, well-developed paragraphs, all of that, okay? So someone asked the question, so you should really shoot for 13 to be safe. 13 if you're including your sources page. If you guys have a full 12 pages of writing, like just your writing, you are fine, okay? If you want to shoot for that 13 just to make sure you have some wiggle room, feel free, okay? Whatever's going to make you feel the most confident. All right, so let's talk about some research, because in just a moment, we're going to talk about annotated bibliographies, okay? This paper needs to include 10 cited sources, okay? So you guys, we've got, what are we? We're in week 8, okay? You guys have about 6 weeks here to really dig into your research and work on your research and find what you need for this paper, okay? We require that 3 of your sources, no less than 3, are internet sources, no less than 3 are print sources, and no less than 1 is a primary source, okay? All right, so 3 internet sources. So, I mean, like, you guys can use npr.org, or you can go look at Newsweek or New York Times or any of those periodicals that are credible sources, okay? Or you know, any type of organization that's credible, feel free to use those. Now, as far as print sources, we're not exactly saying that you have to use like an actual textbook or an actual book that you check out from a library. Do you guys all remember how to do research through NWTC's library through EBSCOhost? Let me know in the chat box. Okay. So I'm not going to take you all the way through it, but really quickly, let's see here. Because of the way they've got Blackboard set up. Huh? Everybody want to watch Netflix? Okay. All right. So if you go to the library, so it's just a reminder, okay? Here's some research information. Here's some resources. Otherwise, you can click a keyword in there and do some searching, it will take you to EBSCOhost, pull up articles for you. Any type of article or source you get from EBSCOhost is an excellent source. And a majority of those are considered print sources because all of those scholarly articles were printed in a journal at some point, okay? So even though you looked online through EBSCO, they're still considered print sources, okay? Do you guys remember what a primary source, like what would be considered a primary source? Use the chat box if you remember. So a scholarly article can be a primary source if the individual is using their research, their experiences. Ideally, a primary source would be information that you come across on your own. We'll talk more about primary sources after spring break, but even if you guys did like an interview with somebody or you took a poll, survey, things like that are great if we can incorporate those in a paper. But don't panic about that primary source just right now. We're going to work on that after spring break, okay? So you'll notice if you add these up, that's actually only 7 sources. So these are the 7 types that we want to see. And then the other 3, you get to decide what you want to put in there, okay? But you need to have 10 sources. Any questions on all of that information? Okay. The reason that I wanted to show that to you is because, oops, sorry, wrong click. I'm going to take you guys into Learning Plan 4. All right, this is our current learning plan. Now, I think I have asked you guys before if you guys remember doing annotated bibliographies in English Comp 1, because that's where we're going here, okay? We talked a little bit about citing sources, documenting sources last week. Part of your homework for last week was to read Chapter 3. Chapter 3 really talks about conducting research, okay? What to do with research. What I want you guys to work on and have ready for the 26th when we meet again is I want you to work on your first 2 annotated bibliography entries, okay? The annotated bibliography entries that you are going to do need to be the potential sources that you're going to use for your paper, okay? So if your topic is, I'm going to go back to vaccinations just because for whatever reason that's on my mind. So if your topic is vaccinations for your research paper, all of the sources that you are using for these annotated bibliographies need to be connected to that research paper topic, okay? So, annotated bibliographies. To me, I love writing annotated bibliographies. I think they are so much easier than writing a paper, but that's just me, okay? By the end, once we're all done with annotated bibliographies, you will end up doing 12 annotated bibliographies, okay? But keep in mind, you only need 10 sources for your research paper. So you will have an abundance of material to put in your research paper when you are done with these annotated bibliographies, okay? So just to refresh your memory, I am going to open this example, okay? Oh, I forgot, it makes me do this all the time. So refreshing our memory on what an annotated bibliography should look like. if Word will ever open the document. There we go. Okay. Well, this isn't an ideal example. Actually, I don't like this example at all. I don't like that one. Let's use this one. It's not the one that I thought. Ugh, that one's not that great either. Okay, so keep in mind these are student examples, okay? But when we are talking about annotated bibliography, we need to make sure that these are double spaced, okay? Because I'm going to use MLA formatting. So using MLA means it needs to be double spaced. What size of font do I need? Use the chat box. All right, let's put this puppy in 12. Okay, so what is wrong with my citation right here? Does anybody know? There is an error. It's missing something from its format. Go ahead.
It's going to be too long for me to like type it out, but isn't it supposed to be like a parenthesis with like the first one or two words to give it like an identification and then like the end parenthesis period?
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about an in-text citation. For our annotated bibliography, remember our format is the actual citation that would end up on my works cited page. So I do have the right information here, but it's not formatted correctly. So let's go, if my mouse will work. Okay, so let's go. Remember that when we have our, yep, somebody just typed it in. When we have our citations, we need that special indentation called the hanging indent, okay? For annotated bibliographies, you guys actually do not have to include in-text citations. That's actually one of the really, really nice things about an annotated bibliography. So your annotated bibliography should have 3 parts. It should have your citation that would go on your sources page. It should have a paragraph of a summary, okay? And then it should have an evaluation paragraph. Now, I'm curious to see if you guys remember one of your paragraphs can be in first person. Is it the summary or the evaluation paragraph? Do you guys remember? Very good. The evaluation paragraph can be in first person if you would like it to be, okay? The summary paragraph needs to be third person. There is no opinion in this at all, okay? It is strictly a summary paragraph, okay? You are just telling your reader what that article was about. Then when we come to our evaluation paragraph, then you can have some opinions, okay? Please remember that your evaluation paragraph is not your opinion of the topic. Okay, so let's see, what is this article? Is this article about birth control? Yeah, birth control, okay? So the evaluation paragraph is not the opportunity for you to share your experiences with birth control. You are evaluating the author, you are evaluating the research, you are looking for things like rhetorical situation, what's the exigence here, things like that, okay? Keep in mind these are student examples, okay? This is an error right here. I have Michelle highlighted. Does anybody know why that is an error? Feel free to turn on your mic or use the chat box, either or. Nobody? Okay. In our paragraphs, both the summary and the evaluation, we really want to refer to our author's name, okay? We want to give them credit. That's our nod to them. You should never, ever refer to your author by first name. You are not on a first name basis with your author. So refer to them by their full name the first time, and then after, you can refer to them by their last name, but never by first name, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, if I am formatting this paper in MLA, please make sure, let's see if I can remember the order. I'm probably going to get it wrong. I swear I can type. Oops, 19. Yeah, haven't been in the 19s for a while. Okay, so make sure that you guys, in your annotated bibliographies, that you've got the citation, you have a summary paragraph, you have an evaluation paragraph, but that you're formatting your paper correctly with the name block, okay? And then also with your page numbers, because we got to have a page number. And for MLA, remember that you have to have your last name, in with the page number, okay? So for these first two entries, your two entries can be in the same document, okay? You don't have to have two different documents for your first two annotated bibliographies. You can put them both in one document. So far, does anybody have any questions? Okay. So your first two annotated bibliographies are due. Actually, I believe, they're due on the 26th, but they are due at midnight on the 26th. So when we come to class on Friday the 26th, if you're having issues or questions with those annotated bibliographies, you'll have an opportunity to get some additional information to help you out, okay? So you need to do some research and do an annotated bibliography for two pieces of research, okay? So 2 entries for your annotated bibliography, and you will submit them here, okay? Any questions on that? All right. You'll notice that it has like the rest of the annotated bibliography stuff there, but you are just focusing on entries 1 and 2. All right. Let me go back to the folders like I want. Let's go back into Learning Plan 4. So that's one thing that you guys need to work on. Come back into Evaluate Logical Arguments. This was the folder that had all that stuff about logical fallacies, and we went over that quite a bit last week. Before we meet on the 26th, we have a test that needs, forgive me, I wrote the wrong date there. I'll fix that. You need to take the logical fallacies written test. Okay, and I'm just going to see if it'll let me give you a preview here. So it is a written test. It's not like multiple choice, okay? So let me just click on this and see if it'll give you a preview. So what we're doing here is it gives you some examples, okay? So what you have to do is you have to look at the sample paragraphs, sample sentences here, and look for the fallacies. So your task is to figure out which fallacy is being committed and why you believe that it's that specific fallacy. You need to give me an explanation. Okay, give me at least a few sentences. So that is what this quiz looks like. Let me go back. Come on, computer. So if you are stumped or you can't remember, look at these specific fallacies right here. Okay. Be sure to use your textbook. Feel free to use Google if you want to, but your textbook is a great resource when talking about these fallacies. Okay. So it didn't take me back where I wanted it to. Of course it didn't. Sorry, I don't know if my computer is just being weird today or if it's Blackboard or what. So I'm coming back into Learning Plan 4. So feel free to refer back to the logical fallacies, both here and in your textbook. And I will correct this date. It is due the 26th by 8:30, okay? So your homework for the next time that we see each other is to do 2 annotated bibliographies and to complete the logical fallacies quiz. Okay? Please use the information in Learning Plan 4 to help you out with both assignments. Okay? I always try to review as much of it as possible in class, but there's so much material we don't cover it all. So refer back to the material in Learning Plan 4, both in the Evaluate Logical Arguments folder and in the Semester Project folder. Okay, and if you get stumped with something, let me know. We didn't really have time today, but work on those annotated bibliographies, continue doing research for your persuasive essay. Look for those sources that you really want to use. And when we meet on the 26th, we are going to look over our thesis statements to make sure that we've got some really solid thesis statements. So be sure to come to class prepared on the 26th to share your thesis statement with a classmate. Okay? So recap, no class next Friday, the 19th. You're on spring break. By the time we come back on the 26th, take the logical fallacies quiz and work on 2 annotated bibliographies, which are due the 26th at midnight. And please utilize the resources in these folders in Learning Plan 4. Okay, that was a lot. Does anybody have any questions? All right. You guys have a fantastic weekend and a fantastic spring break. Go enjoy some sunshine and recharge, okay? Email me with questions, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks, okay? Bye.